special meeting of the Wheeling Plant Commission for Thursday, September 6th, 2012 is now in session. Please rise for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Secretary, could you please take the roll?
Surely. Commissioner Burns?
Here. Here.
Commissioner Johnson?
Here.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Here.
I'm Commissioner Stilen. I'm present. Acting Chairman Rafato?
Here.
That's 5 present. Commissioners Doorband and Chairman Maloney had given prior notice that they would not be attending this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Jennings, are there any changes to the agenda?
Item B, under items for review, Atlantic Aviation petition was withdrawn. Other than that, we do expect item A under items for review. If the petitioner is unable to make it by the time they were originally called, we expect that they'll be here later in the meeting, and we will request that that we call the docket again.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Jennings. Citizen concerns and comments at this time. Is there anyone here wishing to speak on anything related to our meeting? No? Okay. Next on to consent agenda items. Docket number SCBA 1240, Grotho Urist, 45 West Hints Road, appearance approval of a freestanding sign, and docket number SCB 12-42, D'Agostino's Pizzeria at 241 South Milwaukee Avenue. Do I hear a motion?
So moved. Second.
Mr. Secretary, could you please take the roll?
Thank you. Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
And Commissioner Stilen, I vote yes. Acting Chairman Rafato?
Yes.
5 yes with 2 absentees.
Alrighty, moving on, which is the next item for review, docket number SCBA 12-39, Marco's Pizza, 199 South Wolf Road, appearance approval of a freestanding sign.
Petitioner is not yet present and requests that we call it later in the meeting.
Okay. Do we have to do a voice vote on that or just hold it off? Okay. Moving right along. Docket number 2012-13, Make Your Child Happy, 581 North Wolf Road, special use site plan approval for a specialty school. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you. Docket 2012-13 is Olga Hamachonik, President of Make Your Child Happy, Inc., seeking special use site plan approval as required under Chapter 19-05, Mixed Use and Overlay District, Chapter 19-10, Use Regulations, Chapter 19-12, Site Plan Approval Requirements, and associated sections to operate a specialty school at 581 North Wolf Road.
Special use.
Oh, yes, thank you. This item is a special use, and the standards for special use. A zoning special use as defined in Title 19 of the Village of Wheeling zoning is a use of a parcel of land that requires review and consideration before approval due to circumstances or effects on the surrounding properties that may adversely affect them. In order to be considered for a special use, the petitioner is required to demonstrate through testimony to the Plan Commission at a public hearing why their request meets the conditions of the Village Code, including but not limited to how the proposed use will not damage the enjoyment or use of the surrounding properties. Prior to the public hearing, the petitioner provides written statements meant to show that their request for special use meets the standards established in Title 19. The Commission chairperson will typically direct that these statements be entered into the record without a full reading of them at the hearing. Based upon the testimony and supporting materials submitted, the Plan Commission will make findings in support of or against the petitioner's testimony and report those findings to the Village Board.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Would the petitioner please come forward? This is a public hearing, so I ask if you raise your right hand and say, do you swear that the testimony you give tonight is the truth?
I swear.
Great. Could you give your name and business address to the secretary right there?
Oh, is it? 581 North Wolf Road, Welling, Illinois.
Well, thank you. And everything will be fine, just don't worry. So can you tell us what you plan to do with this property?
So my company right now, Make Your Child Happy, it's an educational tutoring center. And it provides educational services for children ages 1-year-old to 5 years old, and then for school-age children in Russian, in the Russian language. And with these two components, with the early education and with the school age, right now I'm only able to help up to 5 children at a time. And the methodology is very unique. I actually spent 6 months abroad studying different early development programs. And after attending my school, children are able to enter gifted programs in the area. So the need for my services is much greater now, and I've just recently opened up. But I'm not able, under current condition, to help these families. And there are approximately, per Census Bureau, there are probably about 2,700 Russian-speaking families in the area, and I would love to help as many students as I can. So if I could have larger classes, I'd be able to help them also grow my business, so contribute to the community, contribute on a financial level to the city or village as well.
Okay. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience that wishes to speak on that? No? Thank you. So I will start with Commissioner Burns.
I have no comments or questions, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding as you presented it is that these are Russian-speaking families. Are you teaching, I noticed, dance and customs and such, Russian language, or are you teaching English at all?
I do offer some English as a second language classes, because there are some kids, they don't speak English, and by the time that they go to kindergarten or school, they need to learn it. So I do offer some of the classes like that. Down the road, if I'm successful, I would love to expand the program to everybody. I'm very careful and no rush to expand, to become real large, so I'm testing, taking very little steps. I actually tested the program for a year before I opened my first class. So it's been very successful, thank God. So hopefully it will continue to grow.
But right now you're basically...
all the classes, the majority of classes are in Russian, but there are some in English, but for Russian-speaking kids who do not speak English.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Johnson.
Thank you. Where is your current operation?
It's at 581 North Wolf Road.
Oh, so you're already there?
Yes, I'm already there
Okay.
as a tutoring center. So I work with maybe one-on-one, with children one-on-one, or groups of 3 kids in the class, or 5 kids maximum.
Okay,
But I would love to have, my classes are very small, they're up to 5 students anyway, but I have a larger facility, and I could have 2 classes at a time, or even 3 classes at a time.
Okay, that was my main question. Thank you.
Commissioner Stalin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Andrew, you want to try and discuss the parking
a comment in the fire department memo relating to the occupancy of each of those classrooms based on the square footage of each room. And the occupancy is suggested by the fire department. I think we added up to 2 less, correct, than what the projected occupancy based on your original submittal. So what staff would suggest at this point is a condition of approval limiting the occupancy based on both of those. So if the fire department has a cap of 52 after the permitting process, that the total occupancy not exceed that number. I think that we had projected our total count based on a certain number of chairs in the waiting room. So in the end, there may be a few less chairs in the waiting room, but that I think will be given a final determination in the permit process.
And I will comply with any suggestions. The safety of the kids is very important to me, so I don't, I will probably go for even a lower number. I have a way to grow, but I will make sure I comply with all of those rules.
And hopefully you'll be able to continue to grow.
I hope so. So far it's been going.
I wish you the best of luck, and I have no additional comments, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. My only comment is around the hours in the, and do we have to specifically state those in the special use? I see 7 days a week, but I also see and then the hours 9 to 12:30, and weekends 9 to 1, but then further down, it reads 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. So, well, you have evening classes too. So should we just make it a general statement that the hours of operation 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m.?
As it's written right now, the document that includes all of that information is referenced in the motion.
Okay.
If you, as a commission, wanted to limit the hours more specifically, you could include that as a condition of approval. But right now, the way it's written, this document's referenced.
Okay, so these students are, they're students, they come in for a class and then they leave. So
Yes.
This is not a daycare center, as I think you indicated, Mr. Jennings, that this is a school use, and it's different than it's different than a special use for a daycare center, correct?
There are a couple of different distinctions. Right now, the petitioner's business operates as a tutoring. It's called personal instruction facility in our code. The proposed expansion is a specialty school, which is similar to tutoring, but on a larger scale. Larger classes are offered. A daycare, similar to the DCFS definition, has children for more than 3 hours at a given time. So a child could not stay at this for more than 3 hours without triggering both our code requirements and DCFS requirements.
Do you, thank you. So in this scenario, you have the parents come in and it reads that they could drop them off in the front. Do they normally come into the waiting area and wait, or how long are your classes?
It depends. Usually the classes are 45 minutes long for younger children. So when they're 1 to about 3, the parents are in the room, in the classroom, because it's important for me that they learn with their children and then they can go home and do the same thing. And then once they are 3, their parents are waiting in the waiting room. So their kids are learning to be independent. And then for older kids, that's when parents can come in, drop off their child and go do something for 45 minutes and then come back and pick up.
Andrew, do you know the occupancy of that building right now? Is it, I know there's a couple of things, and when I went by, it was at night, so I didn't see a lot of cars there.
You mean the tenant mix?
Tenant mix.
They tend to be arranged, if you take a look at this unit, they tend to be arranged with this office area, and the rest is a mix of warehouse and occasionally a light industrial type of use. We have, there's a ballroom dancing facility in the unit adjacent. There's there has been a photographer who had a studio in there. There's a mobile DJ who uses it basically as a warehouse. There's been a painter who uses
So I'm just looking at the traffic in and out.
Yeah, the other units are counted traffic-wise
Right.
as a mix of office and warehouse.
All right. So do you have anybody in the waiting area that, or are you just by yourself in this building?
Right now, I'm by myself. If I'm with the children, well, right now, because there have been only a few kids,
Right.
so the parents are either with me in the room or they're in the
Okay.
waiting area. But it's like, if the maximum I've ever had was 5 children, so 5 parents were
Right.
either with me or in the waiting room.
In prior, not necessarily a specialty school, but we've had before us the baseball place and someone else that we looked at possibly putting a buzzer in the waiting area. So is that
Oh, yeah.
something?
There was a school at Lexington Commons on Lick Hook Road, right?
Yeah, it was there. I don't know if that's something, has anybody considered that? Is that something that we should, I mean, we've asked for it in other uses that involve children. Is that something that we should consider here?
Can I ask a question?
Yep.
When you're, how much time is there in between classes? You said a class is 45 minutes. Is the next class ready to go right at 45 minutes, or is there a 15-minute?
Usually there's a 15-minute break, and what I ask parents to do is come on time. 2 minutes before the class starts, I lock the door. So if they need to come in after the class starts, someone in the waiting room opens the door for them, provided they're with the child. You know, so like so far, not a single person who was somebody else or solicitor was able to come in, just simply come in. Usually the door is locked.
Seems like this is a little bit different in that the parents actually stay with the children rather than being dropped off.
Okay, that's fine.
But
I'm okay with that.
Well, and you said you keep the door locked?
Yes, I get nervous when kids are with me. Like, so I ask parents always lock the door behind you, so
Okay, that's fine.
children's safety is important.
Okay.
Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
The fire department memo lists occupancy for the 4 classrooms, but it sounds like the waiting room occupancy actually is going to come into play here with all parents of, all children under the age of 6 and under, correct? According to your
Yes.
submitted paperwork.
Yes,
Parents will either be with the child or in the waiting room.
or in the waiting room.
So you've already agreed to comply, of course, with all the occupancy codes. But the fire department might be interested to know that there's going to be more people in the waiting room, and that would be a consideration.
Mike, I think the fire department did, that's what the 30 additional occupants are for the class, well, maybe it isn't.
4 classrooms and a waiting room on the drawing.
Maybe.
In that back area, I also have a lot of space in the bigger classroom.
Yeah.
I could put additional chairs if I'm required. I could put I could ask some of the parents to wait there. Like,
Yeah,
I've never had the situation up to this moment where
Sure.
I would have a lot of parents.
Right.
But I will comply with whatever requirements will be. What I'm saying, I guess, is there's space for that.
Okay. Thank you.
Sure.
Yes, Commissioner Johnson.
How many classes would be going on at the same time?
Well, I'm hoping 2, maximum 3, and then I have usually 5 children. I would love to have 6, just so I can pair them up for some activities. So.
Okay.
Any other comments? Mr. Jennings, can you read the conditions?
This time, there's one suggested condition of approval in the motion. That is that the occupancy shall not exceed the maximum occupancy as determined by the fire department.
Any other comments? No? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Mr. Secretary?
Who made the motion? Commissioner Burns?
Johnson.
Johnson.
Johnson. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
I'm Commissioner Stylin. I vote yes. Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Acting Chairman Rafato?
Yes,
That's 5 yes with 2 absent.
thank you. You'll have
Thank you.
something to sign.
And we need a motion to close.
Do
Good
we have
luck
a
to
motion
you.
to close?
So moved.
Second.
Voice vote, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You want to do Marcos? I hate this. Nothing. Oops, yeah, I am the chairman today.
It's on the wrong spot.
Almost. If you bear with us we have docket number SCB A1239, Marco's Pizza. Good evening. Could you state your name and your work address, please?
Sure. Jim Berta, Regional Manager for Marco's Pizza and Family Video.
Okay, great, thank you. So if you could state your plans for the reapproval of the freestanding sign at Marco's Pizza.
Yes. First of all, my plans probably come with an apology, actually, and a definition of the new Marco's Pizza organization and Family Video relationship. This really was more a communication snafu between both of our marketing departments as we got used to this new partnership. We had our initial sign approved very early in the year. Family Video has their own marketing department, and so we had the sign pushed through on approval. Then as time went on, we realized actually they are the franchise owner, and so their marketing department had to have the final sign off. And as we had the time lapse with construction delays, they resubmitted, and especially Marcos being so new to the area, red is really one of their branding colors, and also from just getting that sign to stand out, that's what they resubmitted to us. And then in the communication, because of the gap, we didn't get that put back in. So the proposal is to support the branding color of the Marcos red. It was something that I think, again, was a more communication in our newness with our partnership. And then as far as with the painting of the pole, which in all honesty was something that just was like what made it made sense. And so I think we did that. The casing as well, we would propose to have that painted red as well, and then leave the sign existing as it shows.
Thank you. Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know where to begin. Because the sign went up and it was not what was approved.
Understood.
I'm at a loss as to, what transpired. I would really like to know, you gave the plans to the sign company, they made the sign, they put it up. So.
Yeah, I can review that and again, better explain and hopefully throw my mercy at the good standing relationship that the Family Video typically has with the Village of Wheeling and all of our communication and compliance, is I believe it was going back to February, our sign company that Family Video's marketing department hired put together the sign plans for Marco's Pizza. They submitted it. It was approved. That was supposed to be one of the first stores, and our goal was to try to get that done very early in the spring and March. And with the time lapse, particularly due to escalating construction costs and things that we needed to do at the site for compliance, as the partnership between Marco's Pizza took place, Marco said, wait a minute, any marketing, we have to have final sign-off. So this is many, many months have gone by, and different parties were involved. Then that aspect I actually wasn't involved in, and our sign company then got the approval from Marco's Pizza, and then it was something that it wasn't, tried to sneak it up there, what have you. There was such a time lapse that, again, it was just a communication snafu between Marco's Pizza, Hoagland Foods, Identity Signs, and then honestly when it went back up, I thought that the original approved sign, because I thought the communication was there, that many, many months later when it came back, hey, here's the approved version. I took it as the assumption of the approved version, in general, approved version. So I would have to stand before you and admit the process with which this took place was not protocol, and I'm not proud of that. And I do hope that two things. One, that if the sign still fits within code, you know, is non-offensive to the neighborhood and to the Village of Wheeling, I hope that would be in consideration. Secondly, hopefully the long-standing history of Family Video at that location, as well as at our new Wheeling store, our compliance, our agreement to be part of the sidewalk fund in the future, having the health inspectors in early and having them hold our hand through the process, taking extra cost to move our grease basin and all those other things would hopefully recognize that, again, a communication snafu, and at the same time, something that actually is better for the business at that location, something that's positive with the jobs we created. It's much more visible, and I think hopefully a positive for the corner, despite the mistaken communication, which is typically, as you know, not a Jim Berta Family Video thing.
Okay, you mentioned Identity Signs. And I'm not familiar with that company. Mm-hmm. Is that a company that Family Video or Marco's Pizza, or in combination of both, use?
Family Video, relatively new sign company for us. And they've been pretty darn good with the villages. Now, we haven't used them. We've used Persona for many years and a couple other companies, and there were a lot of positives to working with them, and they did some other sign work for us with LaGrange Park Village and others, and a relatively, again, new relationship from a communication standpoint.
Well, it seems to me that traditionally that it's the sign company that goes after the permit.
Yes.
And this is what I'm after. Here's the permit. The permit, it doesn't fit. Mm-hmm. It doesn't add up.
Right.
And somewhere along the line, either the sign company didn't think it was, imperative to come before the village when they saw the sign that wasn't according to the permit. That's what I'm trying to get at. It's too late to put blame, but still, I don't want to have the customers deal with a sign company that's not going to follow our code.
Right.
And our permit process. And they should. They need to follow the established process. That's all I'm getting.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair and not unjust statement. And again, in all honesty, I chalk it up to human error and communication, and it is not something atypical. And as a matter of fact, with some projects we have going forward, we're not using Identity Sign because of this, as a matter of fact.
Well, I hate that, it's a little late to...
Because I don't want tarnish our relationship that we have with the village of
Yeah,
Wheeling,
and I don't
hopefully with
wanna
the future Marco's Pizza at our other location, I hope, if it can work out.
And I don't want to see the commission nor or a recommendation goes to the trustees that says, you know, you didn't comply with code, you didn't continue on with the permit process, take your sign down, put up the approved sign. It's a little late for that. Personally, I like this sign rather than the other sign.
I wish the darn thing would have followed the
Right.
protocol, because I think a lot of people would feel that once they heard that. And,
Yes.
and
I just don't want to. I just don't want to go on record as saying that I, as a commissioner, am going to tolerate something that doesn't follow the village code and the process that we use, the established process for doing this type of work.
I think that's a fair statement to go on record with, and I go on record saying the same thing. I think most that have worked with me would feel I feel the same way about following code and communicating very well with the village.
Those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns.
Thank you. I share Commissioner Schaaf's frustration. This is not the first time this has happened. Sometimes developers, builders come before us asking for forgiveness instead of permission, and in this case, you had permission, and as we've heard, of course, something was put up that wasn't what was approved. I try to get over my frustration in these situations and look at what you did put up and say to myself, if this was day one of the process and you came and presented this sign, would I approve it? And the answer is yes. You are going to paint the box, or has it already been painted red to match the pole?
Once I was pointed out to me, hey, this is the sign in the code, and I'm like, what? Which is an embarrassing thing for me to say publicly. We did not touch a thing. We did not touch a thing until we went back to this process, and again, that's my MO that I would follow. And I will say, yes, I do know that phrase of to beg forgiveness later, and I guess you can only take me at my word. In all honesty, there are a lot of people that do that consciously. Let's do this and beg forgiveness later. And in all honesty, this was not the case. It was not the case, and it impacted our what I thought was positive relationship with our sign company as well.
Yeah. So the cabinet is still, the outside of the cabinet is still green?
It's still green. We would like to make it uniform and paint it the Marcos red, and then leave it, existing as is.
Okay. And the garden and the landscaping are an improvement over what was there before. And
yeah, I'm actually happy with it, even though you never like extended costs. I'm happy with it. Sorry to interrupt.
It's okay. I guess thanks for coming back before us, and I accept your apology and understand that communications breakdowns happen, and I'm in favor of approving this sign. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Steilen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm kind of interested. We granted approval back in January, and then the oddity happened August timeframe. That's almost 9 months later. When was the physical permit to do the sign created? If it was back in January, well, that could have been lost, and a whole bunch of things could have happened if it was done in August. If the permit was generated in August, a lot of things might have happened to forget what the approved sign was. So maybe, we need to look at our permitting process a little bit closer to make sure that the sign we're granting a permit for is the sign that the installer, whomever, typically gets the permit, right? The installer, that really that onus should be on him and not the petitioner. I think this sign is much better than the basically white sign. I think this one will be a lot more visible. It'll be easy to see. It will stand out for a long distance. The white one, I think, would have bled a little bit, and you wouldn't have been able to read it. So I think this is a great addition. I think it'll be very successful for you, and I thank you for coming back and trying to correct an unfortunate situation, but thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm in a distinct minority is that I think this is a rather ugly plain sign. You had the logo, you had your logo in the sign before, and you've taken that away, and you just have Marco's Pizza, which to me is very, very nondescript, very nondescript. But be that as it may, you probably have enough votes here to get it approved, so I can only talk for so long. The address, which is visible, how big are those letters? I mean, can anybody even see that as they're driving by?
You know, in all honesty, with that address, I don't even think you'd have to make that a condition. When, you know, I was told part of the compliance is to put the address up on the pole, I went and bought pretty sizable letters. And when I came back a couple days later to bring them, our district manager had already put numbers up there. And I'm like, those are kind of small, but they did comply. And so it's something actually that, you know, without even making a condition, I would, the one thing I like about this sign, and I'm not selling, you won't change your opinion, I understand that, is no one knows about Marco's. And this store got off to a record first week opening in all of Marco's franchising. No one has ever even heard of this company, and now everyone is talking about it. And so the same thing with the address. Where's 1990? I agree with you. It's pretty small, and I can't even remember the size of it. But if you're driving down the street, it really doesn't help us. So I'd be happy, and actually it's prompted me to want to put bigger numbers on there, if that's what you're implying also.
Yes, yes. Okay, that's all I had. Do I hear a motion?
You skipped me.
I'm sorry.
Because I'm going to join your minority and
wow, thank you.
and say I'm disappointed with this design versus a couple of the others that we had before. Mm-hmm. But I understand the communication breakdown and agree that the numbers should definitely be bigger. That's all. Thanks.
I'm sorry, Commissioner Johnson. I sit next to you all the meetings and I completely forgot.
So you're not in charge.
Yeah, no. What would other options be here? You know, if this, well, I should probably just make a motion. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Are we putting a condition on about the
Increasing the size of the
Yes.
address so that they're readable from the roadway?
Yes,
More visible?
because these look to be about 2-inch numbers maybe.
They're small.
Right now, there are two conditions, the one from the staff report relating to the painting of the pole, and then number two, that the address numbers be increased in size. And there's a motion without a second right
Do we have
now.
a second?
Mr. Schaff did.
Mr.
second.
Schaff.
I'd like to speak to the motion, Mr. Chairman.
Sure, Commissioner Burns.
I'm trying to visualize what 1990 in larger numbers whether that would really be attractive on that post or not.
Well, I was going to ask actually if anyone has a spec that they typically is somewhat standard for a sign like that. Because I agree, you don't want to get it so that they're wrapping around and what have you. So I think there is a fine balance between how much larger or not.
I'm not liking the mental picture I'm getting. Usually what looks nice and is informative is on the face of the sign at the bottom. It says 1990 South Wolf Road.
Mm-hmm.
Or even on the end cap of the side of the sign wouldn't be bad. You could put big letters.
Go out to the street.
But I don't know if this cabinet is really deep enough.
Cabinet's actually fairly deep.
Yeah,
We don't have a
actually it
profile
is. That's a
shot.
good suggestion, as a matter of fact.
So if
Because that would work.
you're staying in due east, you'll see the address.
That's the only place.
I think that's when people are looking for an address, they're usually looking east and west, not,
Well, and at the stoplight in either direction. Well, I think that if it were to be put on that particular pole, it would have to, if those are about 2-inch letters, you would go 4 inches. You wouldn't go too terribly much larger, but that would help. Or I do like the suggestion on the side, actually, because there's a facade there that it would.
Is there a highly visible address on the building
When you say highly visible, probably
from the road?
probably from the distance from the road, you could see it stopped at the at the stoplight, but probably driving by, you wouldn't want people looking for it. But yes, I mean, people can tell where it is.
You could,
yeah, I think, you know, our purpose of putting addresses on signs is to help people understand where they are in the neighborhood. Obviously, if you're going to Marco's Pizza, you're going to look for a Marco's Pizza sign. You're
Right.
not going to look
People
for,
know where we are now, right? That's
Exactly.
true.
You know, so I think just anything that we can do to improve the visibility of the address portion, you know, I don't know how Prospect Heights addresses and ours differ down in that.
Boy, I can't tell you how true that is, because I was down in Mokina this weekend and I was looking for an address of a building so I could figure out where I was at, and there were none. So we have a couple of options on the table right now. We've got them on the pole or on the side of the can. Another option is there some way to, right below the sign, to affix something on the back with brackets around the post and put addresses that way, so you see them north and south, like right there. Yeah, exactly. A bracket, and then something coming out from each side, right underneath, see the address. Because I personally, on the side of the can, I don't see that being very effective. But then again, if you're driving by, you're looking at the sign, that would be my second preference. The signs on the numbers on the pole really don't do much, depending upon how big they are. So let's take a poll here. Commissioner Burns, let's just keep it at two options on the side of the can, or an increase on the pole.
I would go with neither of those.
Neither?
Either.
Okay, that's good.
So you like the other idea?
I'm sure there's if we, could see what you're talking about, hanging something that would be more attractive than larger numbers on the pole, or the numbers on the east side of the cabinet that I don't see as being really visible enough, or serving the purpose that we want. And then another thing that was mentioned by a commissioner was that, what does the address on the building look like? I mean, the building's not far from this sign. And if there's a highly visible 1990 South Wolf.
Well, but we require a sign. We
Yes.
require an address on our signs.
Yes, but we have signs without them as well, and we can give a variation on that.
Not too often.
But
So
the only reason I'm considering in this case is because this sign is done, and it seems to me that some of the options that would technically meet the code of putting a sign on, an address on the sign, I don't like the look of. But I would be interested if there was a way to put a bracket on the pole or the bottom of the cabinet that would look good and would say 1990 South Wolf.
Just to interject, it can be done. It has been done. We've had them done two different ways: welded to the cabinet and then bracketed to the cabinet. So it can be added. The gas station at the corner of Dundee and Wolf had that done when they had their sign upgraded.
Thank you. That would make me happy, Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner Johnson.
I would agree, it should be a separate sign connected to the cabinet,
Right.
not vertically on the post. And
Commissioner Steinle.
I'll go with whatever the petitioner would like to do to make the address visible. If he said he'd like it on the side's fine.
Commissioner Schaaf.
I like it on the side of the cabinet, tell you the honest truth.
Mm-hmm. Well, I like the new concept that we have, so that goes 3-2. So that's the condition.
That's the way it's worded currently.
Okay, great. So, do you understand what we're looking for?
Yeah, I should probably just repeat it to make sure there's no confusion, but yeah, so that it reads like the current numbers and what have you. Everything is horizontal, basically, and that there would be. And I can take a look at the example that you showed us, like I looked at the example of the planter box that you gave me, that it would be either bracketed or welded underneath, slightly larger, so that if people are looking at the sign anyways, they'd be able to see the address and it would jump out.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I quite honestly, I aesthetically think that's a good suggestion and also a cost-effective suggestion.
Great.
Which I appreciate.
Sure. So, do we have a motion?
I'll amend my motion to include the new condition.
And a second by Commissioner Schaaf?
Seconded.
Okay, great. So roll call, please.
I'm Commissioner Steinle. I vote yes. Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Acting Chairman Rafato?
No.
That's 4 yes, 1 no, and 2 absent.
Thank you. There'll be some paperwork for you to sign.
All right, thank you
And then
again.
you can work with the staff to figure out that bottom part.
No problem. Thanks a lot.
Okay. I said staff. I didn't say this guy. Yeah. Okay. Calling docket number 2012-14 A and B and SCBA 12-41 Twin Peaks Restaurant, 781 North Milwaukee Avenue. Mr. Secretary.
Hold on, I gotta find it. 2012-14 A and B is John Gessner and Tim Fox on behalf of Twin Restaurant Wheeling LLC, contract leasee on behalf of Store Capital Acquisitions LLC, contract purchaser, is seeking the following actions to facilitate the operation of a restaurant within the existing building located at 781 North Milwaukee Avenue, Wheeling, Illinois, legally described below. And dockets number 2012-14A, special use and site plan approval as required under Title 19 zoning of the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 19-05, mixed use and overlay district, and Chapter 19-10, use regulations to operate a sit-down restaurant within an existing building, and docket number 2012-14B, a variation from Title 21 signs, the Wheeling Municipal Code, Chapter 21.06, commercial and industrial districts, Sections 21.06.100, Design Standards, and Section 21.06.500, Permitted Signs, Subsection A, Wall Signs, and associated sections.
Thank you. Would the petitioner please come forward? Will you be the only person speaking tonight?
No, we'll have at least one other
Okay, could
representative.
whoever is going to speak please rise and raise your right hand? Do you swear the testimony you give tonight to be the truth?
I do.
Okay, could you please give your names to the secretary and either business cards? Thank you. And could you please introduce yourself, sir?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the Plan Commission. My name is Matt Norton. I'm a partner with the law firm of Holland & Knight, and we're the attorneys for Twin Restaurant Wheeling, LLC.
Okay, great. So if you could start and give us your ideas for this facility.
Thank you.
If I could just briefly, before the petitioner makes a presentation, there was an update following the staff report that I just wanted to briefly explain. The petitioner's application under 2012-14B, which is the Title 21 Sign Code of Variations, the original application included a variety of variations. Staff reviewed that and found that two of the variations were required. Some of the other variations were not actually required. Following another review of the signs, the construction of one of the signs that was going to require a variation is not as what we originally had reviewed. The sign, which it will show later, the sign which has a green panel behind it is a totally opaque panel, and therefore the sign would meet the standard in the code for individual illumination of letters. So that variation request is not required. Should a motion be made on that docket tonight, we would update the motion to reflect that change. There's also, just as a technical note, the calculations referenced in the motion would also be updated as well. The sign was also the subject of a variation related to the percentage of graphic area. So we would go through that motion and revise it just to reference the plans as shown and not include either the variation related to the illumination or the variation text related to the calculation of the sign area. And that is all I have.
Thank you. Please give your presentation.
We're pleased to be here tonight. As Mr. Chairman, as you mentioned, we're here tonight on our applications for the property at 781 North Milwaukee Avenue. That is a former Claim Jumper restaurant. Twin Restaurant Wheeling is filed an application for a special use to operate a sit-down restaurant in that building and for a sign variation. Before I get into the details of our proposal and go through some of the special use and variation standards, I want to introduce our team here tonight. Randy DeWitt is the CEO of Front Burner Restaurant Group, which is the affiliated company with Twin Restaurant Wheeling. John Gessner, Vice President and General Counsel of Front Burner. Tim Fox, Senior Vice President of Development for Front Burner. And Austin Hester, Director of Operations for Front Burner. Mr. DeWitt and I will be speaking. Everybody else is here and available to answer questions if needed. So I'm going to turn over to Mr. DeWitt now to say a few words, give you an introduction to their company.
Thank you, Matt. Hi, I'm happy to be here as well. And Matt asked me to talk a little bit about Front Burner and the Twin Peaks restaurant concept and how it got started and how we ended up coming all the way up here to Wheeling from Dallas, Texas. Front Burner Restaurants was started by me 20 years ago, and over the years we were a concept development shop. One of my heroes is Rich Melman, you know, who's one of the hometown heroes here in Chicagoland, and I met him personally and had dinner with him a couple of times and consider him a mentor, so we're pleased to be here in his backyard. And especially out in front of a couple of restaurants that they manage now, adjacent to the Westin Hotel there. So, I had this seafood chain, that I started in *98 and started growing it, and we got off on the wrong foot, just like Claim Jumper apparently has, and got to the point where we had overexpanded and went into some inappropriate locations for us, and had to shut down some restaurants. And we took 4 of those locations and reconcepted them into something that we thought was a little more on trend with where the consumer's going, and we came up with this idea of doing a mountain-themed sports bar called Twin Peaks, and it really took off. And so we grew it from beyond just fixing a couple of restaurants that we had mislocated into what's been our breakout hit. And now we have 25 restaurants, and that are open as of today, and we are opening approximately 1 per month now. Along the way, in 2010, the Nation's Restaurant News, which is our big trade publication, it's read pretty widely throughout the restaurant industry, they give out an annual award called Hot Concept, and we were given that award in 2010. And right next to us in this development is the Cooper's Hawk, which was also a Hot Concept winner. So I was able to meet their owners and the entrepreneur that started it, and found out we had a lot in common. And so I tend to call him when I'm in town, and great guys. We were initially attracted to Wheeling because of this building, because of our theme and the idea that that's a mountain lodge, a very contemporary version of one, but it was designed and built as a mountain lodge. But the more we studied the village, and you have some extremely high volume restaurants here, as you know, we really got excited about coming to this community. And even though that was a bank foreclosure, the previous occupant of the building spent a fortune building it. It's a beautiful building. And so it was a little bit above our normal price that we would pay for property, but we got so excited about coming to Wheeling, we quickly closed that gap with them and got the property under contract. And part of our financing strategy is to assign our purchase agreements to a financing outfit called Store Capital, and they do a lot of restaurant finance work. In fact, they did the financing on the building where Cooper's Hawk is. So they were already familiar with the development in the site, and they quickly agreed, that we were paying an appropriate price, and let's get started and get this restaurant open as soon as possible. So to give you an idea of the financial impact of having one of our restaurants here, our new restaurants are opening at about $100,000 a week in sales. Some are doing more than that. We expect that this one likely would, but for budgeting purposes, we're saying it's likely to be a $5 million a year restaurant. We will employ 125 to 140 employees. About a third of those are part-time, 2/3 will be full-time permanent jobs. In spite of our estimate, I think, was $6 million to build that restaurant. That's all pretty much staying there. We have to change some equipment. We definitely need to change the seating layout, add a bunch of TVs, a few other new pieces of equipment, different furniture, different signage. And then our mobilization and pre-opening costs. Our budget for remodeling and reopening that restaurant is right at $2 million. Almost all of that money is spent locally here in this community. A bunch of it will be rooms at the Westin Hotel right next door, which I can't believe they get $200 a night for. We're going to have to negotiate something. But we're excited to be here. Can't wait to be part of your community. And I wanted to come up when Matt said, this commissioners group really likes to meet the CEO of the company. Well, that's me. I'm also the founder, and I'd love to get to know all of you guys personally. I really like the approach, just hearing the past discussion about signage, because I'm all about that. We often encounter ordinances and codes that just don't make sense, and they cause you to design something that's just not aesthetically pleasing in order to comply with the code. And most of the time what you get are, cities who say, well, that's the code, you have to comply, that's the colors or that's the size. And I love the way you brought it up and said, it's just, who cares? Let's do something that makes sense and looks right and is pleasing. So we're all about that. So if you have any suggestions on our signage or any of the landscaping or other things that we are going to change on the outside of the building, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Randy. So as Randy said, the building exterior will really stay the same except for the signs. Don't propose to do anything to the exterior. The interior will be renovated. Some components of the seating area will change, but the footprint of the seating area will essentially stay the same. And in fact, we are reducing the total seating capacity versus what was approved for Claim Jumper. Claim Jumper was approved for 421 seats, and we are proposing a total of 354. We'll maintain the existing parking on our lot, and also the landscaping that was approved. Some of that landscaping is in okay shape, some is in not such great shape, but we intend to bring it back to the condition approved by the village when they approved the Claim Jumper special use. Hours of operation are proposed to be Sunday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to midnight, and Thursday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 2 a.m. And we expect to maintain a workforce of between 120 to 150 employees, with about 45 employees on a peak shift. The special use standards that the village requires, I'd like to just go through those quickly and tell you why I think we satisfy them. And I know you're familiar with these. The first one is state why the special use is necessary for the public convenience at the proposed location. In terms of being necessary for public convenience, the restaurant use here is consistent with your comprehensive plan. More importantly, I think it's consistent with the PUD ordinances that have already been approved for this site, and those expressly contemplate a restaurant here. I think that the residents of Wheeling and employees within the village will benefit from the operation of a new successful restaurant in this location, already designated for that purpose. This is a vacant space right now and has been for a while. It's at I think a very prominent location in the village of Wheeling. It's sort of your north gateway, and I think us filling this space, fixing the landscaping, will be an advantage to the village. It will enhance the village's sales tax base and its property tax base, and we would hope help spur some additional development within the Westin Hotel project. The next three standards I want to kind of talk about together, because I think they're all answered by the same facts, and those standards are: how does whether the special use will alter the essential character of the area, whether the location and size of the use, whether its nature and intensity, and its location with respect to the neighboring streets will be in harmony with and not impede the normal appropriate and orderly development of the property, of the area. And then third, how does the location, nature, and height of buildings, walls, and fences, and the nature and extent of the landscaping on the site, will it hinder or discourage appropriate development? And I think the important thing to remember with respect to these standards is this is an existing restaurant building, and we're not changing the exterior at all. So we're taking a new restaurant use, putting it in an existing restaurant building, on the outside changing only the signs, on the inside decreasing seating capacity, sprucing up the landscaping, maintaining the property that is not currently being very consistently maintained. So I don't think there's any doubt that we will not in any way damage our neighbors, hinder the development of property around us, lower property values around us. Again, PUD ordinances have already been adopted that establish this as an appropriate restaurant site. So I think we are consistent with all of that. The next standard is state how the parking areas will be of adequate size to serve the special use. The parking's already been approved for this PUD, and there are shared parking arrangements and shared parking easements that apply across the Weston project. And again, we are decreasing the seating capacity, so we don't anticipate that parking or traffic will be an issue at all. And then finally, state how the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed by the regulation in that zone. And this to me sounds sort of more like a variation standard than a special use standard, but I do think in this case, I mean, this building was built for, well, you know, we're estimating $6 million for a restaurant. To come back in and retrofit the entire building and redevelop it for a completely different use is going to be very uneconomical and I think very wasteful, particularly when it's in what I think the village has already determined is a good restaurant location, and we believe also is a great restaurant location. So that's our request for a special use. We've also have a sign variation request, and as Mr. Jennings mentioned, our initial application included a number of sign variation requests. That came about because we are under a very short, compressed due diligence schedule here under our purchase contract, and we were really under the gun to get our application on file so we could be here tonight before you. And we erred on the side of being over-inclusive in our sign variation requests. And as we've gone through this with staff, and they've interpreted the code, and we've gone on with this a little bit, we're not really down to one sign variation. And that is with respect to the, this slide here shows the bottom is the original claim jumper approval. The top shows our signs on the south elevation, the entrance side. And staff's interpretation is that because of the proximity of these, they treat it as a single sign face. The variation is necessary because although the village sign code encourages taglines and logos and creativity, it limits the percentage of a sign, of the total sign face on a facade that can be a tagline or logo, and that percentage limitation is 40%. So this is a tagline, Eats, Drinks, Scenic Views. That exceeds 40% of the total sign face. And the same is true on the reverse, on the north facade facing Lake Cook Road. There's the two sign elements of the sign face, and there's the tagline there. In both cases, it exceeds 40%. I think that in our case, this creates a hardship or practical difficulty for a few reasons. One is the sign code actually, as I said, encourages the use of taglines and logos, but it places this limitation, this percentage limitation, and that's really all it is. The size of these signs, I think, evident from the plans, they're not obtrusive signs. They don't overwhelm the facade. I think they're appropriate in size for our restaurant, and the code is written so that we could have a total sign face much larger than what we have on here. You get 1.5 square feet. If you include a logo, 1.5 square feet per linear foot. And this is about a 169-foot long building. At that ratio, we could have 253 square feet of signage under your general rule on the front and the rear facades. So we could do that without a variation, and then we we kept the Eats, Drinks, Scenic View sign the way it is, or actually even increased it, as long as the total sign face increased, we wouldn't need a variation. It's sort of an anomaly, I think, that we could have a bigger sign and not need a variation. At some point, I think, with a bigger sign, you get to a point, even though you might be in compliance, where it's not good for us because it starts to, at some point, overwhelm the facade. It's not good for you because it's not what you're looking for. But I do think creating that situation when adhering to the strict letter of the code creates a more intense use and maybe arguably a less attractive sign. I think that's a practical difficulty or hardship. The other area where I think this creates a hardship is these elements, Eats, Drinks, Scenic Views, that's a registered service mark of Twin Peaks, as is the Twin Peaks wording in conjunction with the mountains. Those are our service marks, and you know, I think if we can't use those, and it's important for us to use them in a new market. This is our first entrance to Illinois. People don't know yet who Twin Peaks is. We hope to change that. They don't know who we are, and these are the way we brand ourselves. So we're looking for a way to do that in a reasonable manner. I think it creates a hardship for us if we're not able to do that. One example that we thought of is that, you know, if we couldn't have the tagline Eats, Drinks, Scenic Views and just had Twin Peaks, that sign alone on a mountain lodge type looking building, you're not sure what we're selling. It could be outdoor gear, it could be camping gear. We're new to the area. People won't recognize instantly what Twin Peaks means. So, you know, essentially the bottom line with the signs is that we are, you know, the taglines and logos, they need to be large enough to attract sufficient attention at what I think we all agree is a pretty busy, high visibility intersection without being so large that they overwhelm the building. And I think these signs that we're proposing satisfy that goal. One of your elements for a sign variation is whether the hardship's due to unique circumstances that do not generally apply to other properties. Our need for visual identification is, I think, somewhat unique because we are, again, unknown in this market and we need to establish ourselves. I would also say that the percentage limit on the logos affects us more, again, because we are proposing smaller signs overall and actually being somewhat harmed by the percentage limit on the logos and taglines. One of your elements is state how the property in question cannot yield a reasonable return if permitted to be used only under the conditions allowed. Again, allowed under the code, the strict letter of the code. I would say that allowing these variations will give us the opportunity to have wall signs that adequately identify Twin Peaks and help us establish our brand. If we're not able to do that in the restaurant business, you know, it's a tough business. We saw what happened to Claim Jumper. We are concerned that we would have our own economic issues if we're not able to establish that brand quickly and effectively in Wheeling. We don't want to. This property has been vacant long enough, and you don't want it to go vacant again. One of your standards is describe how the alleged difficulty or hardship has not been created by any person presently having an interest in the property. Twin Peaks is seeking to acquire the property from an entity affiliated with MB Financial Bank. The property has gone through foreclosure. And I would say that, you know, the difficulty and hardship and anomaly doesn't arise from us. It doesn't even really arise from the prior owner. It arises from this sort of anomaly in the code that creates this percentage limit on taglines. And then another element is state how granting the variation will not alter the essential character of the locality. Again, our signs are not obtrusive. This is the existing Claim Jumper sign. These are our signs. You know, our signs are smaller than the Claim Jumper sign. I don't think there's anything about them that will alter the character of the locality. And then finally, as a standard, the variation will not impair light or air, increase congestion, increase the danger of fire, endanger public safety, or diminish property values. And I think it's just self-evident that we won't do any of those things. So those are our requests for a sign variation, our request for special use. We respectfully seek a positive recommendation from the Plan Commission on those requests, and we seek your approval of the sign appearance for the wall signs.
Thank you. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak on this docket? No, there are not. So we'll start with comments and questions from the Plan Commission, and I will start with Commissioner Johnson.
Well, thank you. So you don't forget this time.
I don't forget.
Is this building a typical size of your restaurants? And I know this place is pretty big.
Yeah, it's 10,000.
Could you, yeah, if you could.
Yes, it's about 10,000 square feet, and I wouldn't say that's typical, but we have a couple of buildings that are slightly larger. Most of them are slightly less that size, but you know, we're certainly comfortable operating in that size facility.
As far as the signs, the one that's up there right now, your Twin Peaks logo sign, is that, how far under that overhang is that? It seems to me like it's not going to be very visible.
Yeah.
From Milwaukee Avenue.
You know, we could have made it larger, and I think the first proposal I saw from the sign company was larger, but it looked like it was crowding some of the architectural, structural elements up in there. And so I actually had them reduce it to a size I just thought was proportionate under that gabled roof element. It is possible, and I think it's contemplated in the PUD, that this site is allowed to put up a monument sign, and the prior owner of the property did not do that. So we're certainly going to evaluate that once we get the signs on the building and see what it looks like from the roads, because that was a concern of mine as well.
Or could you put it on the wall to the left of your tagline?
Yeah, we looked at that and just didn't think it was as aesthetically pleasing over there. I appreciate your concerns with the commercial viability of the restaurant. It's a very busy area if you're traveling northbound on Milwaukee. And yeah, and then I thought that was north. Is that west? The back? Yeah, the
This one?
Yeah, well, it's just called side kitchen elevation. There is a sign there.
Right.
So if
but by then you're past where you can turn in.
That's right, yeah. But we're not really an impulse purchase like a fast food restaurant would be. People are typically, you know, made up their mind. They're coming there and they're just looking for us. So it's less of a concern if, you know, we were perhaps even Marco's Pizza or something. You know, that might be a spur of the moment. Hey, we're hungry. Let's pop in.
And then the sign on the opposite side of this one, the one that faces the parking lot, I don't know that you even...
The one that faces, directly over the patio? Is that the one you're referring to? Yes.
Other than in the parking lot, nobody would
Well,
see that.
we think that's going to be visible from Lake Cook Road as you're headed west or north or whichever way that is.
Headed west.
Yeah, west. You know, I actually even got up on the roof while, you know, Tim was driving it, you know, what do you think? We are pretty sure that's going to be plainly visible and catch that traffic going that direction.
I think that's all my questions for now. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Stalin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have absolutely no problems with the restaurant special use. I think it's great. I think it'll be, you know, it's already the character of the area. So, you know, I think you'll fit in real good. Your eats, drinks, and scenic views, you know, I've looked at all your pictures of your sites that are nicely displayed on your website, and I think you have put that yellow lettering on numerous of your other buildings, and you say it's a trademark or whatever. I'd really consider it part of your logo because it seems to be everywhere on all your other businesses. So I think that's perfectly acceptable for you to have. I'm not sure about the other Twin Peaks signs, though. The one that's showing right now under A1, you know, you have, I'd say, almost 30 signs on your website, and they all seem to be a little bit different. They're you're not consistent in the Twin Peaks, and I drew up this one. Unfortunately, I don't know the location, but it's got an outline of green, and it appears to be whitish in the center. Is that what A1 is going to try to depict, or is that all going to be white?
On A1, that we do two versions of the sign. That's why you're seeing things that are looking different. And A1 is an example of not being mounted on a cabinet, and that's when we have a stucco facade, which would just have a uniform color background, and we can get enough contrast there. And then the other style sign is actually the mountains themselves, instead of just being outlined on the top of the letters like A1. It's actually the mountains become the cabinet, and then the letters are in front of that. And we use that style sign. There's a sort of a, the specifications of it right there.
So would that be more like?
That's right.
This particular?
That's correct. And we use that style sign when we mount it on the wooden trusses, because, you have a lot of, business going on behind it, and you can't really mount the other style letters on that.
So Andrew, is this one of the signs that they need a variation for, or which of the signs are they needing a variation for? The yellow ones, I think, were one of the needed ones, right?
So the north and south elevation each have the tagline, the extra tagline. That is what requires a variation.
Okay.
And it's my understanding the variation is because the logo sign that says Twin Peaks on it is so small in order to fit under that gable that the ratio of 40% is not within the parameters. Is that right?
That is one way to look at it. If you were to take, for example, this feature out and move it to the other end of the building and increase it, it's possible that you could get it large enough.
You'd have to make it really large, though, to do that.
You could make it large enough to have this end up being 40%.
Right. We looked at placing the sign there, and, I just didn't think it was as attractive if we, put the sign on the back end of the building there. To me, to a consumer, it's intuitive that the sign, the main sign with the name of the restaurant is over the front door.
Yeah,
so it helps people locate where to enter, I guess.
I agree with that. I just think that, with your 25 other signs that, you show pictures of, I think there are a little bit more attractive signs that I would hope might fit over the door. Yeah. You might have chosen this one because of the unique circumstances of needing to fit there. Yeah. But I think some of the other signs that you have on some of your other buildings are a little bit nicer than this one.
I think it's just the way the artists depicted it there. Trust me, it'll be very attractive, or I'll take it down. Because
again, that's why.
And we only use two signs, so what you see is what you'll get here. That's a photograph, and this is just a computer-generated drawing.
Right, but I think if this is the one we're kind of going to get,
right.
I think that these are a lot nicer
Oh, you like those better. See, I personally like the other one better, but, you know.
Well, I think they look
Yeah.
a little bit, I just think they look a little bit more upscale. So,
Okay.
You know, so that's what really I would recommend, that, you know, the picture here probably doesn't do justice to the sign, but, you know, and I'll pass this one down so the other petitioners can see a better depiction. It doesn't have the tagline, because this one has the tagline right.
Right, and that one's in Colorado, and that was, you know, everyone has a different ordinance, so we had to put the tagline under the name in that case.
You know, and the one on the other side, you know, I don't really know what that's going to look like. To me, it looks too white and doesn't have any of your green in it and
I
stuff.
think what we're missing there is the background wasn't colored in. Can you switch to the, what would that be, eastern, I guess? Yeah. What you're not seeing there is whoever prepared this drawing didn't use a colored rendering of the building, and the building itself is kind of a dark brown, and so we're using white letters on that one.
But the mountains, or will they be just white, or will they have a little tinge of green in them, or?
Yeah, those are white.
That's the sign right there. So the letters would be green and the mountaintops would be white.
Okay, that's great. Like that.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's the east. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, and that's because that fascia of the building was dark brown, and we didn't think the dark green would give us any contrast.
Right.
I don't know, I think you'd be a little more visible with a little touch of color, but it's your restaurant, so. All I can do is say, you know, I think your signs are okay. I'd like to see a little bit more upscale above the door, but I'll let the other commissioners speak. Thank you.
Thank you.
Welcome to Wheeling.
Thank you. Commissioner Burns.
Thank you. And thanks for coming to Wheeling with your first foray into Illinois.
Well, I wanted to eat at Bob Chin's anyway, so.
Yeah, I'm real happy that another restaurant is moving into that empty building, and it seems like this is a successful, growing concept, and look forward to going there and having a meal. I agree with Commissioner Stylen that your signs with the individual channel letters is more attractive than just the mountain peaks above the letters, but I can see the reasons why you had to go with a smaller sign above the front door under the gable eaves, and so that looks almost as good. So I'm in favor of your signs, and the variance on the tagline is not an issue at all. It looks just fine.
Oh, thank you.
Let's talk about bike parking, please. There's a small bike rack on the south side of the building. And your material says that at peak times you'll have 45 employees. I don't know how many customers are going to bike to the restaurant.
Hopefully many more.
Most of them will be driving, I'm sure, but I hope you're amenable to maybe expanding your bike parking.
Absolutely. You know, we are, you know, cognizant of the fact that there's a really busy bike trail right behind the Westin, and I think it'd be really neat if a lot of our staff members would ride bikes to work. So we'll, you know, more than happy to accommodate that request and add some bike racks.
That would be great. And then the health department mentioned some accordion doors you're going to have between the inside and the patio.
Yes, when the weather's really nice, we think a really important part of our atmosphere is to be able to open up the windows and allow people to walk in and out from the patio back into the restaurant bar area without having to go through a door every time. And, you know, it just promotes that outdoorsy type feeling. And, you know, you see that a lot in downtown Chicago now, people doing rooftop patios, and that's just where people want to gather now. They want to spend time outside while they're socializing.
Well, you'll be working with the village, of course, and the health department specifically on that, because I don't know if they're going to They let you have an outdoor patio, but I don't know if they let you keep the doors open.
I know
to the
we've had some
inside.
conversations with them, and every city's different in their interpretation of, even their own codes, and we've been able to get that accomplished everywhere with usually, some air curtains, or sometimes it requires a screen or something. But, we intend to work with them and make sure everybody's happy with the way the restaurant's designed, and make sure that, people stay healthy. Of course, that's our number one goal. And, beyond that, the overarching goal is give people a nice, entertaining experience so that they want to come back.
Okay. Well, again, thank you and best of luck. Those are my comments and questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Oh, well, yeah, Tim points out that our window door manufacturer of choice is Chicago Bifold. Yeah, we've been using them for years, even before we came here.
Thank you. Commissioner Schaaf.
Thank you. I have no problem with the signage or anything. My only question is, you read your hours of operation. I'd like for you to repeat them.
I believe what we propose, every restaurant we adapt to the local market. We want to be open when people want to come. I believe we were proposing till midnight, and then on Thursday, Friday, Saturday till 2 a.m., which is not to say we'll, stay open that late, but we'd sure like the leeway in order to do that if there's enough late night business here.
Sure, but so Monday through Wednesday was
11 midnight, right? Sorry, Sunday through Wednesday, right?
11 to midnight, Thursday through Saturday, 11
Right.
to 2.
Okay, wait a second. It's not Monday through Wednesday, it's Sunday through Wednesday.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. It's 11 a.m. to midnight.
Right.
And then Thursday through Saturday,
11 to 2.
11 to 2. Thank you. That's all I had. And once again, echoing Commissioner Burns, welcome to Wheeling.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Schaaf. The couple of questions, and for the signage over the door, currently, if you look at one of the existing pictures from the Oak Claim Jumpers, it shows an address, and it looks as though your sign is going to cover that address. I can't find it now. One of them, right there. Right there.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, we'll have to find another place for that address.
Probably on one of
It seems like the intent of your interest in the address and how large the numbers are, maybe we should, in order to accomplish your goal of trying to give people, a little bit more wayfinding around the village, maybe we should move the address to the street side of the building and just come up with an attractive way to display it back there.
that would be a good idea. I
Right.
think that would be an excellent idea. Then my other comment, not related to the signs, is the landscaping. And I know you had indicated that you're going to go through and clean it up. But one of the things that I would like to ensure that is working is the irrigation. It hasn't probably been used in a number of years, and we require irrigation. And I know you would probably check that anyway, but as a condition, I'd like to see that in there. Just to ensure that the irrigation is all fine and working, because we do have some of our retailers who say, yes, they do have a irrigation system, but they can't seem to find the on-off switch to make sure that it works. So we just want to ensure that happens.
No problem.
And then Commissioner Stylen, you mentioned one of the signs, because I'm okay with the signs that they've proposed, but I would like to see what everybody else thinks. So you were talking about the Twin Peaks sign on the which would be the east side, is currently white lettering on the east side, so it's facing the river, okay? And you were asking about changing that or enhancing it so it can be seen better to one of the ones that they have?
I just, the majority of their signs, even the ones that are white, have a little green trim around them and stuff, and I just thought that's more in character.
You know what I think would be a good idea, if I may, is the returns on the letters. If we painted the outside of those green and then kept the inside white, then you'd catch a little bit of that green color
There's
while
probably
you're
just
looking
a
at
little thin piece of metal that holds the plexiglass,
plastic, right?
If that were green too, would just give enough contrast.
I like that idea. Yeah. We just want the overall sign, for the daytime read, to have a high contrast, so it accomplishes what it's there for, and that's to identify the restaurant. So, we felt like that dark brown finish on the outside of the building certainly fits our brand, and we would just leave it that color rather than go in and repaint it, especially to paint it a light color, which would probably necessitate changing all of the colors. So that's why we thought, we'll go with white for the signage in order to get the high contrast for the daytime read of the sign. But I'm with you. I think it'd look even better if it were a mix of that dark green on the outside of the letters themselves, and then the little retainer clip. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, that can be done.
Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I just don't want to limit the restaurant to a specific condition on that tonight. We know that he wants contrast. The idea of the sign is to have visibility, but he's on the same page with that.
Right. Yeah. So and I think if we add that as a condition, that's okay. I mean, because the signs.
If we could word it, if the petitioner wanted to do that he could, sure. not to mandate that he goes either
I
way.
think I'd like to really sit down with the sign company and get a higher quality rendering done before we say, yes, make it that way, and just make sure that it looks great. Yeah.
I'd be willing to approve either way. So
I'd be willing to work with staff as you get your rendering, and if staff deems that it would be helpful to have that for contrasting, then they could easily work with you to do that.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, then just a general question. Do you, you said you're opening in 25, and this has got nothing to do with this because I think this is a great concept. Do you normally go into buildings, or do you do design build also? Do you do design build?
Well, since we got our start in 2005 with 4 restaurants that we already owned that needed to be reconcepted, that kind of carried us through until the recession hit in 08, 9, and 10, and we were, blessed with an abundance of vacant restaurant buildings, and so, we've gotten to 25 without building from the ground up. We are now just having to start doing ground up construction. So we have one going up in Fort Worth, one in El Paso, one in Little Rock, and I think that's where we are right now. So we're starting to do new construction now.
So your floor plans, you have the concept of what you want to do in the floor plans, and you go from, and whatever you come into, like this one, the bar is at one end, and you just have the majority of the seating. Because I actually know about Twin Peaks, so I've been in the one in Scottsdale.
Oh, great.
So you, in there you sort of had the, if you remember, you got 25, the bar sort of like in the center, and you have eating areas on both sides.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's just whatever you roll with, whatever comes into the door when you're looking at a building.
If it's just a really badly designed or placed bar, then we'll demolish that and build a new one. In the case of the Claim Jumper, we thought they had located the bar just right, and so we intend to just leave it where it is.
Great concept. Great. Do we have any other questions from the board? No. So Andrew, can you?
I do have one note that I did not catch until we were just discussing the hours. So there's an additional condition of approval that I would suggest just to double check on the hours. I'm trying to look it up real fast, but I'm not 100% sure if the liquor ordinance allows Thursday hours that late. So I would just suggest a condition that references subject to the restrictions of the liquor ordinance.
Okay.
I think it does. I checked the liquor code at one time. Did I bring the liquor code to a zoning?
We're that too.
It's safely tucked away in my own. Here it is.
If you could get to the microphone, that'd be great. Thank you.
Usually people bring liquor to the...
Let's see if I can find it before you get there.
See who gets there first.
Class A, each day per week, 7 a.m. through 2 a.m. the following day. December 31st, 7 a.m. through 3 a.m.
There you go.
Okay. So can you read the conditions that we have on
I'll
each
start
docket?
with the special use,
Which was
2012 14A. Number one, that the plans associated with docket number 2005-25, ordinance number 4014 and 4190 shall be referenced in the special use ordinance. Number two, that the landscaping and irrigation system shall be restored as originally approved. Number three, that the accordion window/door feature dividing the bar area from the patio shall be modified if needed to meet the code requirements for separating food preparation areas from the outdoors. Number four, that additional bike racks shall be provided. Are there any other conditions discussed that I didn't catch?
No, maybe we can do a motion, so we go through each one then.
Sure.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Stylin, seconded by Commissioner Burns. Mr. Secretary?
Commissioner Stylin, I vote yes. Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
Commissioner Raffato, or Acting Chairman Raffato?
Yes.
That's 5 yes with 2 absent.
2012B? Is there anything on that one?
2012-14B is the variation. There are no conditions on it. There's a note to update the motion to remove the variation related to internal illumination and reword the variation to correct the reference to the percentage calculations to be consistent with the sign dimensions.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Sorry, Andrew. I didn't understand.
The original motion in the staff report, which would be the motion that's made by default, references a variation that's been withdrawn, as well as calculations that are no longer correct because they're based on incorrect dimension. The best way to
Even in the south elevation?
the best, because the two are kind of grouped together, the best way to solve that would be to reference the plans, because the plans have not changed. So reference the plans that you've been given so that we can have an opportunity to recalculate based on the correct numbers.
Still need a second, right?
Who made the motion?
I did.
Okay, do we have a second? I'll second.
Second.
Okay. Second by Commissioner Schaaf. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Schaaf?
Yes.
I'm Commissioner Stylin, I vote yes. Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Acting Chairman Raffato? It's
Yes.
5 yes, 2 absent.
Okay, and then lastly, SCBA 1241, appearance of approval of wall signs.
There are conditions on this one. Number one, that the wall sign shall be approved subject to the approval of the required variation from Title 21 signs as described in docket number 2012-14B. Number two, the building address must be relocated so that it is visible following sign installation. Number three, that the trim caps and returns on the white letter signs may be dark green to improve visibility. And that is a maybe and not a shall be.
Mr. Chairman, I thought we weren't going to be specific on what color the letters or the
Maybe.
contrast. Oh, maybe.
Maybe, he said. Maybe, not shall be.
Okay.
Maybe. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Mr. Secretary.
Commissioner Johnson made the motion, and
Mr. Burns.
Commissioner Burns made the second. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner Burns?
Yes.
Commissioner Shaft?
Yes.
Commissioner Stylen votes yes. Acting Chairman Raffetto?
Yes,
It's 5 yes and 2 absent.
that's it. Good luck. Welcome to Wheeling.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Yeah.
When do you think you'll be open?
That's Tim's job.
Well, we've got nothing going on this weekend, so.
And it's a good thing you'll be open Thursday nights, because that's when our typical meetings are.
Especially if they're.
Right for March Madness. All right. Thank you. You're going to have to sign
The
something.
projected date for the village board review of this, I believe, is the 17th. And you can check back in with us to confirm that, but should be penciled in at this point. It's in this room at 6:30, and we'll put in the formal request for that to be placed on the agenda. There's a placeholder there, but we'll confirm that.
And they don't do a first reading, second reading, they take action that evening?
Yes.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome.
Did I get them all?
Oh, my goodness.
It's a good restaurant.
Is it?
Yeah. Tasteful, do you have a steam? Yes.
Writer's Crab?
Yeah. That was like the.
Chinese crab? Signature crab?
All of the above.
Was there one missing? Oh, I'm sorry.
The nearest thing similar is chosen.
We do need a motion.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Is your beer really 28 degrees when it's 29 degrees?
And you see a sign right above the bar. Right.
Yeah, I'm thinking.
I've seen it as low as 26, but when you get down to the really low temperatures, the light year speeds up.
My wife loves very, very cold beers, so she'll be there.
As long as you have a Chicago Bear sign up.
After
Thank you.
Do we have a motion to close?
We got to approve. Oh, it's public hearing.
Close the public hearing. I'm sorry. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, moving on. Approval of the minutes of August 9th. Do we have a motion? Second?
Second.
Motion was made by Commissioner Burns, seconded by Commissioner Johnson. Voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Approval of minutes August 16th.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Stylen, seconded by Commissioner Burns. Voice vote.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, moving on to other business. Mr. Jennings, do you have any other business?
I have a little bit of other business.
Okay.
We, at this point, with no items from tonight's agenda continued to next week, there is no business on next week's agenda. We had put a placeholder agenda out earlier today in the event that one of these items would be continued. Having no business scheduled, we would issue a cancellation notice tomorrow. The comprehensive plan overview workshop, as you recall from last week, was the request for the next workshop. We're in the process of preparing that. If there are any particular requests related to it, please just let us know. We are projecting that to take a couple of weeks to finalize and put together, depending on how busy we are with other items. The other request that we've received is for a tour, a completed projects tour. There was a request related to that to make sure that we coordinate that effort with the fire department. There were some suggestions made that there are a couple of sites that the Planning Commission may wish to visit because you do receive fire department reviews on your typical staff report. So, bless you. We're working on that. I'm not 100% sure if that will be September 20th or not. We're trying to get it in sooner rather than later because of the sun getting down earlier and earlier. So we have some potential actual business that night. So between that night and the 27th, we're trying to figure out if we can schedule a tour.
Could we possibly start that meeting early?
We have, I believe, started as early as 6 in the past, depending on people's schedules.
If we have other business?
If we have other business that night, I probably would not schedule it.
Okay.
All right. It's just the coordination involved in doing it is just not a good idea to try to set it up and only give ourselves 20 minutes of daylight.
That's true. Okay, thank you. Anything else, Mr. Jennings?
That's it for me.
Other business, Commissioner Burns?
Nothing.
Commissioner Johnson? Nothing. Commissioner Stylen?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to address the board. Would you mind if I use the podium to come out and talk to you guys so I could get your reaction and stuff?
Sure. Are you a citizen or just addressing it?
I'm a commissioner, but I want to see if you guys know and or remember what the OV1 zone was that was in the village code probably back in the, started in the late 60s, I believe, and then when the Appearance Commission and Zoning Board of Appeals was intermixed and the codes were all rewritten, the concept of the OV1 zone was deleted from our records. So nobody here remembers what the OV1 zone was?
I was in grammar school in the 60s.
Right, yeah, considering you and I are the oldest members here and I don't remember it.
Well, Pam does, so.
Right, but I didn't
She's not here.
I didn't see her tonight.
Okay, well, it kind of in short, the
reading about it. Right.
The OV1 zone was created, now this is my belief, to kind of complement the comprehensive plan a little bit stronger than just having it available as the comprehensive plan. It was an official zoning title, and I believe it was section 19.050 in the old zoning code, and it was just listed as an overlay, but it brought the comprehensive plan into a little bit of more reality because it was documented in the zoning codes, and specific aspects of the overlay zone involved construction of new development, landscaping requirements, special purpose type things. And it covered a portion of Milwaukee Avenue, and I can't remember how long the area was, but basically the limits of the village of Wheeling at that time. And it also extended down Dundee Road, and I believe to Wolf Road, and covered maybe a block or two either side of the road. And again, all it was an overlay to draw up specific new construction criteria, whatever. And what I'd like to get your guys' thumbs up or thumbs down on the possibility of doing something similar for the airport area. You know, I would propose something like, you know, the area from Palatine Road to north of Hintz Road, and then from the river maybe to just west of Wolf Road, and say that any new development in that area would be conducive to and supportive of airport-type related uses. You know, so it could be new car things,
So what's that,
restaurants.
What's different than that than a southeast district?
Like I said, I think the concept back then was our comprehensive plan calls for
Right.
an airport area.
Right.
But one of the things, Jim, I think you've been around, we always have said it's nice to take the comprehensive plan designations and bring the zoning code up to it, because it's nice to say we'd like to have residential in the comprehensive plan, but it's zoned industrial today in the zoning code. So there's always that, well, what do we allow? Should we allow this use, or should we allow the comprehensive plan use? Which one goes?
Okay.
And the concept of bringing that overlay out of the comprehensive plan into the zoning code just makes it a little more designating that the character of that area should be this, even though the underlying zoning doesn't change.
If I could make just a quick suggestion, comment. The consultants who are doing the Southeast TIF District plan, I think the intention at this point is to possibly use that plan as a comprehensive plan update. So once it goes through the process, consider it as an update to the sub-area plan. And one piece of it, when this comes through the Plan Commission, which it's going to probably within the next month or so, that suggestion can be made to the consultants, and they can look at it. They can take it into their consideration as one of their recommendations back to you and back to the board for implementation. So if there's a mechanism to implement the recommendations of their plan that is zoning related, either with a special overlay, that's certainly a possibility that you can float to them, which they would in turn consider and put back into their materials that come to the board.
Yeah, and I agree with that entirely. I guess my concept or feeling is, you know, there's a lot of development that's contemplated or being looked at in the airport area. I mean, we have petitioners coming in for all kinds of uses, and if we could just make a statement, you know, that this overlay area is something that we would designate for that property, or at least like to designate, that we can get a head start on whatever the consultant is going to come back with, or the TIF area is going to come back with. At least if something that I hate to say, wouldn't like or didn't fit an airport use came in today, we'd have difficulty saying no. If we've already started talking about it before the consultants come in with their official approach, maybe that might make things a little bit easier. I don't know. It's just a thought on my part that...
I guess from my perspective, I don't know enough, except for your few statements here about the overlay district, to make sense of it, to be honest with you. I really don't. Andrew, is there any information in the archives about OV1s? And I remember that from when I was on the Appearance Commission in the 70s.
Exactly,
I remember
yeah.
something about that, but I didn't have exposure to it because we were just Appearance. Is there anything in the archives that we could send to the commission to me, Commissioner Steinle, it sounds as though it's just a duplication of what we're trying to do in a district, that we're trying to make it part of the comp plan. So I don't understand the concept, and is it of value now as it was in the 60s and 70s and 80s when things were going on at a much faster pace of building. So
Yeah,
I wouldn't want to add another layer to a layer of complexity to this, but it's something that I think we should look at.
Jim, the only thing I can say is we were assigned a task back in October of last year for the Plan Commission to go out and look at the southeast TIF area, which does include some of the airport, and not much was done over that year. And you know, we have a promise that at some point in time in the future, the consultants will come back.
Well, that's the only reason why it was stopped, is that there were consultants coming in. I don't get the impression that there wasn't any action on our part because of lack of wanting to do it.
No.
It was
all I'm saying is, had we done something, you know, and I'm just saying this is simple. You know, as simple as this a year ago, maybe it might have stopped some activity that might have been less desirable.
I love this position of being a chairman because I can say things quickly. Okay, but the point being is that we've probably had one item come in that area that we approve that the village did not. One, and I don't think it's going to happen again. I don't think it's going to happen again. If, you know, based upon our workshop last week of being on the same page. But it makes sense to review something like this to see if it fits. But again, the concept of an overlay district doesn't, I don't get it. I personally don't see the need for it, but if it's something that we should have a dialogue on, then let's talk a little bit more about it if we can get more information.
I can get you some information on it. Generally, the concept is similar to what the OV1 was back when it was implemented. It's an overlay district that adopts certain urban design guidelines typically. So you have the underlying zoning, but then in, say, a downtown area, you want to make sure that there's an enhanced level of urban design. So maybe you have a minimum sidewalk width that's different. You may have other design features. You may have a minimum building height. You may have a design line so that you have a mandated architectural feature at 20 feet. So every building has a line, a horizontal line at 20 feet in that district. There's a bunch of different things that can go along with that. A lot of times it's for urban design, streetscape implementation.
Okay.
So it's implemented a lot of different ways, but typically the way I've seen it, it's done in a downtown area. That is not to say it couldn't be done for something like this, but it is a zoning code amendment. It is a zoning map amendment, and therefore takes some time.
Does an OV1 specify use?
It may specify, an overlay district can have use restrictions that are different than the underlying zoning. So
character restrictions.
Okay, so not use restrictions. You talk character, and you happen to mention character and some of the things you were talking about, right? So one, then I guess I don't see how that would have helped last year in an OV1, putting an OV1 district last October in place in the Southeast District, unless I'm missing something. Because if we don't know what we're looking at in that specific Southeast TIF district, then how can we say that we want minimum street sides, whatever, sidewalks to be 4 feet or whatever? How do we know that without getting some of what we're talking about in the comprehensive plan? So I think that the concept might be good, but to Mr. Jennings' point, I think it's a bit premature. But in addition, I would still like to have more information on it.
Staff.
I guess that's all I'm saying. I don't know what can be done or the limits of what can be asked for either, but I thought as long as we started talking about it now rather than continuing to wait, that might give certain impetus should something happen in the future.
Okay.
So
We can prepare the research and
Sure.
try to get it to you before the consultants come to you.
Great. Thank you.
You know, I'd really like to have a consensus of you guys, because if you don't think that it's necessary, why put Andrew, through the work? If you think that, it's going to be done anyway.
Well, getting a explanation of what it would mean would be a help, but I'm in the dark as far as how it would do anything for that area.
Commissioner Burns?
I think information is always a good thing, and Andrew's going to get us some information. I mean, like everybody else here, I'm just being introduced to the idea. You did say one thing, Terry, that I might have a problem with, is that you would kind of like this OV district maybe to get ahead of the consultant's report if they come up with something you wouldn't approve of or I wouldn't approve of. Is that correct?
Well, I'm assuming, I am assuming that area that the consultant is going to be talking about is the airport, and I presume they will be talking about airport uses. I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I just wanted to say that our subcommittee on the Southeast TIF district was actually stopped by the village board so the consultant could do their work and give us a report. So it seems that it might be going at cross purposes.
I did not know that it was stopped by the village board.
Well, I didn't stop it, and neither did Chairman Maloney.
So anyway,
The direction came from the staff and the village board.
No, again, all I'm trying to do is establish potentially something to start talking about the area such that if something were to come along tomorrow, we could legitimately say, hey, we're doing something, or the consultants are doing something, but we have been researching that area. So that's it.
Okay, well, you can come and sit down again. I agree with Commissioner Burns that I'm troubled by the putting the cart before the horse, like you said. But Commissioner Schaaf, comment.
Well, anything that's, happened like OV1, I would like some type of, some information on it, but whether it's applicable to the Southeast TIF might be discussed after we get some information on it. I just don't know enough about either one, and of course, any information is good.
And Mr. Chairman, one of the things I'd like to learn is if OV1 is something that the Village of Wheeling used to do, why don't they do it anymore? Why was it removed from the process? Was it replaced by something better? Was it problematic in some ways, and they decided to get rid of it for that reason?
Don't know.
So,
is there any history, Andrew, that you could pull up?
I can try to find it.
Okay. Great. Thank you. Commissioner Steinlen, any other business?
Nope, that's it.
Your sign?
Huh? My sign.
Yes.
My sign.
I'll bring it up. Commissioner Schaaf.
Sign.
Your sign, I don't.
It's Virgo, isn't it? Your sign? No, okay. Commissioner Schaaf.
Losing your audience.
Okay, you lost me.
Yep.
I go down, I head east from where I live down Dundee Road, And every morning or every time I pass the Dunhurst, there's that upholstery truck out there. And he's in the same spot at the same time every time I pass there. And I thought there was something about additional signage that was not a sign. And it acts like, or it seems to me like that truck is an additional sign. Now, do we have to have documentation to go in and say, you know, put the truck back in the parking lot where it's supposed to be and not have it act as a sign?
Well, the code itself is, as you said, prohibits vehicles being used as signs. So if that's in fact what they're doing, we just need a complaint to have some of our inspectors or a inspector go confirm it and send them a violation.
Well, that's, it's just something that's there all the time. I've lost track of it, and then it comes up again, and there it is. It's still there. It's like that truck never moves.
It probably doesn't. I don't think it has moved.
You notice the same thing then?
Oh, sure. Oh, yeah. Again, it's just enforcement. That is not code, and it's just enforcement. But to Mr. Jennings' point, it's just somebody has to say something and brought it up. So, anything else?
That's all I have. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Jennings, the sign at the new auto repair shop, the for lease sign?
Advance Auto?
Yes, I block it out of my mind. It is in an odd space, which was pointed out to me by another commissioner. Is that, that's not anything we control, correct? The size of the sign, the placement of the sign, the aesthetics?
We control it to a limited extent. A leasing sign like that has some restrictions. It has to be on the property. It can't be hazardous. It has size restrictions. There's a section of the code that limits putting it into the brick of a brick building. So there are some restrictions on it. In this particular case, we have contacted them about the sign and its location, and the owner of the property called back to request a discussion on where to move it to when they do move it.
Great.
So
I just think it looks so odd and looks so out of place. You've got a nice new building, you've got a nice sign, and you've got this sign there. I know that we can't control. Now, we don't control that because of what? What's its classification?
it's considered an exempt sign.
It's an exempt sign.
So there are restrictions on exempt signs. So to be exempt, it has to meet the criteria for that type of sign. So it has to be a certain size. It has to be located on the property. As I said, it can't be hazardous. But it's in the same category as a real estate sign, a building for sale. They're all considered leasing and sale signs.
Okay.
So it's just not, there's so many of them, and the overwhelming majority of those are the standard realtor signs.
Okay. So there's always, like, for instance, there seems to be always one in front of where Jimenez is. I can't think of that.
Lynn Plaza?
Lynn Plaza. Thank you. There always seems to be is it CB Ellis or something? For lease sign in front there. It's almost permanent. It's been there as long as I've lived here practically, you know, the name has changed. So that's considered an exempt sign?
It's considered an exempt sign. There are sections of the code that combine to make up all of the regulations for exempt signs. There are duration limits based on the sale or the lease that you can't have it up 7 days after that. So as long as there is something for sale or for lease.
Okay.
Okay,
yeah. And it's probably not, I mean, to try to mandate it anymore would, because there's so many of them. And how many times this seems, I mean, that just the placement of that is just not really good. I mean, it just looks like it was put up haphazardly.
Yeah, if the consensus of the commission is to have us look at that, I would suggest just writing it to the board and say, is this something that you'd like for us to consider as a potential sign code amendment? But other than that,
sign code amendment for us to have that come before us all the time?
Well, whatever the request is.
I was talking specifically about the sign right now at the auto parts store.
Oh, we have called them and they're
okay.
They're open to the discussion of moving it.
Great. Okay, I'm not. Well, that's me, and I'll ask. What we're talking about here is bringing those types of exempt signs always in front of the Plan Commission. Commissioner Burns?
Nope. No. Follow the code.
Commissioner Stylen?
It seems to me that the action to ask the petitioner to move it, if it's inappropriately placed, even aesthetically, as long as that seems to be working and they move it, then we ought to let suggestions prevail.
Great. Commissioner Schaaf?
I agree.
Okay.
With Commissioner Stylen.
Because how many times have we had, and we have thousands of these signs probably, how many have we had?
More often than not, the issue that we deal with people on these is placement off the property. They'll put it on the wrong side of the sidewalk, or it'll be, they'll buy a full 32 square foot sheet of plywood in a district that doesn't allow it to be larger than 24. I mean, it's usually that kind of issue.
Okay.
And they comply, and it's done.
Done. Okay, great. So we'll continue to handle it the way we were doing it. Thank you. And then just a couple more things. One, the workshop last week, overall I thought it was a good workshop. I would like to see those more than once a year. I'd like to see them twice a year. I personally think they're needed. It's still my sense, it's still us and them. And Trustee Argyris mentioned, we have to do these things as a team. But my sense sitting there is that it was still a little bit of that. I think there's some dialogue going on, but I think if we meet more often and I don't know if there was there a concept review this past Tuesday? No, maybe not. No, there wasn't. No, but some way of if there's going to be a concept review before the village board, and I know we get the agendas. Brooke does a great job of sending them to us, but sometimes we don't get that. But maybe a separate email saying, hey, this concept review is coming up. If you would, try to attend in person so you can see it there, or ensure that you watch it on the TNV, that'd be great, because then, if it moves forward, you're going to be getting it. So you at least then hear it. I know we're going to be getting the notes from that meeting, but I think even something to push us to get there would be good also. Because they, as I can't remember what trustee it was, the staff has done a great job of lowering the occupancy of industrial. I mean, those were great numbers that they were presenting to us. And I don't know if anybody saw it today, but our unemployment numbers in the village of Wheeling are at 7%, right around 7%, which, you know, lower than the national average and lower than some of the towns around here. Now, granted, I mean, that's village residents, but still, that's pretty good. And because we do have a lot of village residents that work in the village. And something like Twin Peaks, 140 employees, that's pretty good. So,
Jim, if I can just add to the commentary on the team building meeting, you know, I was a little bit disappointed in getting, you know, documentation that we saw 2 years ago and documentation that we had discussed maybe a few meetings before that. And to me, it didn't seem to be much team building. It was more of us kind of informing them what we were going to do and their approving of what we were going to do. And I guess I don't always enjoy some additional feedback on what their vision is and where they seem to, you know, be going, especially if their vision and our vision are competing with each other, if you will. Did you get that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it's important for us to know that. And if that's the intention of those workshops, then we didn't quite accomplish that. We didn't quite accomplish that, would be my take on it. This
is, I guess, what I would like a definition of being on the same page or team building, because I worry that it's straying into groupthink, that we have to agree with the village board, and I think that goes against the purpose of a plan commission and is not fair to people that come before us. They come before the plan commission for a plan commission hearing, and each commissioner as an individual is supposed to review the material, look at the presentation, and make an independent decision. And then we make a recommendation to the village board, and what they do may be 180 degree, you know, in the other direction, but that's appropriate also. That's their decision. So I really like the workshop and getting together with them, and I think that's a positive thing, but I don't think that we have to get our marching orders or anything on how to proceed.
No, and I can assure you that the trustees, the village trustees wouldn't want that either, nor would the village president. Me personally, I'm thinking at a much higher concept of what, if we get down to certain areas of the village in the comp plan, a concept of what we're looking for. We get down into the nitty-gritty, and there could be differences there, and I don't think, and the village board might have some ideas there, and that's where we could diverge. But at a concept level, if, for instance, you know, if we're taking the Wicks property as an area, and they were thinking what we have right now, and we as plan commission were thinking light industrial. There's a disconnect there.
Yeah,
I'm talking a connection at a higher level, at a much higher level. The details we should disagree on. And what we're doing. There should be that healthy disagreement. But to be honest with you, at a much higher level, I don't think so. But if we do, I think we should have some dialogue there. That's where I'm coming from. Not the details of what we do here. Definitely not. Because you will have differences. We've had them, and I think there was a healthy debates on some of those. So that's where I was coming from.
Well, I mean, any dialogue is going to help.
Right.
And all it does is just diffuse misconceptions. That's how I feel. The more dialogue you have, the less confused, anybody is.
Right.
Mr. Stiley.
Yeah, and I just think, again, there are a lot of things that can happen in town, right? Is it better to have a boarded up, vacant building? Is it better to have a use that might be marginally acceptable? Is it better to strive for businesses that generate lots of sales tax revenue? I think those comments might be directions that, we can all discuss, including the village board. They're responsible for a lot of the financial aspects of the village. And if they need revenue producing resources as opposed to things that drive property values down or whatever, I mean, they can make those comments. We don't have to follow them, but I mean, it's nice to have those financial or other incentives that they may be looking for.
I would agree. Yep, I would agree. Exactly. Any other comments?
Yeah, the using your iPhone as a gavel, is that a free app?
Yeah, it is.
It's the gavel app.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Let's voice vote.
Aye.
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 Opposed? We are
Out of here.
8:55.